The Indian team selection. The diary of Thursday's net session. What did you see and what did you learn about the 11 that's going to take the field for India today?
Firstly, it was a reminder of how difficult it is being an Indian cricket journalist. And honestly, I did it for 10 and a half years before I moved here. And, you know, in a way, now when I look back at it, I have no idea how I did it, how I kept my sanity.
Why is it so difficult?
Because you get nothing, right? You get no access, there's no clarity, there's only confusion. And especially on days like yesterday, when you have the head coach and you just played that clip of Gautam Gambhir there, probably the first time ever in the history of cricket that a head coach walked out and when he was asked a direct question about whether the captain, this is not a new captain, someone who's been in charge of this team for 3 years now, will he play tomorrow or not? The coach's response was, we'll go look at the pitch and then confirm our 11. So that's how the drama starts. That's when we are like, hang on. He's clearly said Rohit's not going to play because we've just seen Rohit in the background as Gambhir and Jasprit Bumrah were checking out the pitch and having multiple chats. And then once that finished, Rohit was no longer part of the slip cordon while they were taking practice.
That was the giveaway.
That was the first giveaway for sure. And it was instead KL Rahul. Virat Kohli had moved to first slip. Reddy, Nitish Kumar Reddy had come into third slip with Jaiswal at Gully. And then you could just see Rohit having multiple conversations with Washington Sundar, with Jasprit Bumrah himself, with Gautam Gambhir. And then when the main net session started, it was it wasn't optional. The entire Indian team was there. When all the main batters were in there, which included Shubman Gill, who's definitely playing, that was the other giveaway. Jasprit Bumrah being the man who came and gave Shubman Gill a fist bump. And, you know, everything is ruled by a fist bump in today's day and age. Yeah. He was the one who gave him a fist bump and a hug, so that meant Gill is back. So you go...
Gill at 3, Rahul to open.
Rahul to open. But the mystery wasn't cleared yet because Rohit stood at the back, just like MS Dhoni had stood 10 years prior after retiring in MCG. Here, Rohit had not retired in MCG. We still did not know whether he's playing tomorrow or not. He stood at the back just having a laugh with Bumrah. And then once the main net session was gone, Rohit walks off. And then he walks back in with his pads on and this big jumper still on him. And he has one of the most bizarre short net sessions I've ever seen a senior batter have. He was just facing throwdowns. There was no intensity in it. A couple of times he just left balls, straight balls, which knocked his off stump off. And then he just walked off. And then we were left to wonder, does that mean Rohit might still get a go? Or have they not made the call? And then, Tommy, reports arrived from India, like they always do, which said Rohit has allegedly dropped himself because of being out of form.
Do we believe that?
Well, there was also the word, it's either Rohit has dropped himself or the Indian team management has rested him. And you don't get rested at this stage of your career, especially when you're averaging 6.2 with the bat in 3 tests. And seemingly have lost control of the team that you were in charge of.
So I saw the term opted out, as I said, like an email subscriber, like you're opting out from spam email. I mean, can we slice through it? Have they told Rohit there's no space for you in this 11?
I think that's what the messaging seemed to be yesterday. I'm sure Rohit would have had a couple of inputs as well. I've been asked this question right through the series, like, can India drop Rohit Sharma? And I've always said, well, if it'll come down to whether Rohit decides to take a call on his own career. He hasn't retired yet. I mean, we still don't know whether he will. He's definitely missing out. The signs are, yes, the reports have confirmed that he will not be playing today. But yeah, I think it'll be a mystery. And like that tweet that you read out from the author, who I'm sure I can guess, it's just this soap opera. And this is what happens. This goes back to my original point of how difficult it is being an Indian cricket journalist. What it does do is it teaches you all the hard lessons you need as a journalist, because we were all stood there for 3.5 hours watching every move, not just of Rohit Sharma, of all the others. Where's Bumrah? Where's Ajit Agarkar, the chief selector? And Rohit walking, like finally leaving the field or leaving the nets with Ajit Agarkar, the chief selector, and Jasprit Bumrah, his successor. So it all made sense. But then you're still reading into these things that nobody tells you anything.
I'm not trying to be flippant, but dropping a test captain on the eve of the biggest test match this country's played since the World Test Championship final 18 months ago is huge. Like, I can't remember the last time a test captain has been dropped mid-series. I know that England's test captain dropped himself mid-series 50 years ago, 1974, 75.
Mike Dennis,
Mike Dennis, that's it. But and I know that players have left mid-series. Jonathan Trott left mid-series. Ashwin left mid-series a couple of weeks ago. Marcus Trescothick. So that's happened among players. But for a captain, to be told you're not in the 11 with one test match to play is a bombshell.
It is a huge bombshell, and you're absolutely right. For words like opted out or rested to be used.
Opted out was my favourite. That was my favourite.
But it just kind of sums up the confusion around Indian cricket in terms of the media. I mean, there's this whole hullabaloo over dressing room secrets being leaked out. Well, that's just how sports journalism has worked always. So, but again, there's just the relationship between the team and the media has not existed in most parts, but it kind of tells you where we stand and what leads to these kind of bizarre scenarios where the captain looks likely to be left out.
Okay, so that's the team selection. That's the first delivery of this over, thanks to Cobram Estate. The second delivery, which is interlinked, is team disharmony. And you've written, I think, the article of the summer. I don't say that lightly. In the Australian this morning, which you can read online. You can also read it if you buy the Australian. It's a lengthy piece, but it's a deep dive into the schisms in India's test squad. And you've painted a picture of... disharmony is one word, but I think it's more just a lack of communication and different factions of players suiting themselves. Can you explain to us what you mean by this?
I think I'll go back to the start of that column where I found out after one of India's most famous test wins on Australian soil, or probably one of the most famous test wins in history in Perth, the team, once I heard that the team did not celebrate it together, they didn't hang together, and like most cricket teams.
And you told us on the new ball they didn't celebrate it together.
I absolutely did. And this is despite someone senior in the support staff going, hey, take my credit card. And because there is an allowance in the BCCI fees, which allows you to spend a little on celebrating a win like that. When that wasn't happening, one of the support staff senior guys said, take my credit card, let's order drinks, let's all be together. And nobody wanted to. And
why? Because everyone had their own plans.
Everybody had their own plans. Everybody has their own mission. And the head coach, Gautam Gambhir, I mean, he's always been someone who's not been prone to socializing. He prefers just being indoors. And he had his family. He just prefers, having a quiet Indian meal, which is what he did. What it told me was, like, okay, I had heard about there being, the team being, not, like I said in my piece, they're not fissures, but it's not a fractured team, but it's a fragmented team. And that I'd heard even before the series began, once I got to Perth and I watched India train at the WACA. But I thought a win like that would bring teams together. Like, that's just how it works in sport, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Any sport, yeah. But once that didn't happen, I did want to wait and watch how this team would react if they start losing. And we saw it in Adelaide. We saw how they survived at the Gabba. But the way they lost in MCG, it was just the trigger that it needed for all the simmering tension to surface and be made public in its own way. It's not a broken dressing room, I wouldn't say that, but it is kind of divided in terms of generational gaps as well. You have Rohit Sharma, who we've discussed at length today. There's Virat Kohli, who's at a different stage in his career. And the Indian Express article, we had Sriram yesterday. Yep. It didn't clearly point Virat out to be Mr. Fix-It, but it kind of hinted at it, didn't it? And strongly. And we've all been seeing how he has been leading the charge on the field. And I think your explanation of why he would want to do that also made sense, a lot of sense. And then you have the middle group with Rishabh Pant and Shubman Gill, who want to do their own thing. They're at a different stage in their career. And then you have the younger lot, one of whom I mentioned, who I bumped into a kebab shop at 1:45 the night before a test. He wasn't playing.
What test?
This was the Brisbane test. Yeah. And the only thing the poor thing wanted to know was if the captain was speaking about him and if the coach had even mentioned him, because he said, there's no communication, there's no clarity, nobody speaks to me.
Yeah.
And then I heard from a couple of the Australian players that the same player had told them that as well. So it kind of tells you about the lack of clarity, and which is why I also put later on in my column, when Ravi Shastri was in charge, there was respect. And how can you not respect Ravi, as you've come to know?
I love him.
When Rahul Dravid took over, there was reverence for the great Rahul Dravid. And one thing with Rahul was you could joke with him, you could have fun with him. Then once Gautam Gambhir took over, with no previous experience of coaching, he'd been director of cricket, there was just uncertainty. A lot of players in this team have played with him, either for India or for the national team. But there's just insecurity, uncertainty about how he would react to certain things. And because of this lack of communication and because of him not being the best communicator, It's just led to this almighty mess, which could well result in the captain being left out of the big test.
The approach of the Australian team and the Indian teams, they're diametrically opposed. You'd say the Australians, if anything, have been too stable over a long period of time, if there is such a thing. You know, they've backed their players into the hilt despite poor performances. India have a completely different method. Every player that is performing at a below par level is looking over its shoulder. The coach isn't necessarily in tune with the players, and it's just a little bit messy. So how much of this is Gautam Gambhir's fault, and how much of it is the playing group's fault?
I think everybody plays a role in this. I wouldn't just like single out Gautam Gambhir and say it's all his fault. I don't think it's yet a coach versus players issue. I think the difference between people will draw comparisons between what happened with Justin Langer in the Australian group. There, at least, there was two factions in the issue. There was the players, but they were all together. Similar age group, similar ideas and approaches to how they wanted the dressing room to be, and then a coach who just didn't fit that approach. But here, it's you have the coach doing his own thing. Like I said, you have 3 or 4 separate generations within this team doing their own thing. And when a win like that happens in Perth, I keep going back to that. That, for me, was symbolic when the team didn't celebrate that together. Not even like for an hour, they didn't sit together. They just went their
Baz,
own way.
if you get the credit card from the BCCI, that's like keys to the city.
Absolutely.
Like
Why wouldn't you?
You use that credit card until it runs out, and I'm surprised the players didn't do it collectively.